Is bigger better? Should regional towns be trying to grow? Population growth in regional South Australia is slowing down, and the Advertiser's reporting today that it's gone from 5,000 to 970 new residents a year over the past 5 years. So 5 years ago, 5,000 new residents to regional South Australia, South Australia, and now 970. My next guest would like migration programs to be reworked and boost growth. And I'm asking you to get involved and say, do you think that we should be doing this? 1300 160 222 or text me 0467 922 783 as I welcome Mark Glazbrook, who is the Managing Director of Migration Solutions. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on, and hello.
Now, tell me a little bit to start with about Migration Solutions. What do you do?
We are a company that assists people who want to come and live in Australia. So whether that's international students or business migrants, or if someone's travelling overseas and they fall in love and get married and want their partner to come and live in Australia.
Oh, okay, so you do lots of different things. So is population growth in regional areas mainly from overseas migrants?
Well, population growth comes from a number of areas. One is natural increase.
In regional areas, Mark, is that the growth that we see in regional areas? Is our main population growth in regional South Australia due to migrants from overseas?
Yes, at the moment it is. Areas like Murray Bridge, they've employed a lot of foreign workers to fill vacancies in food manufacturing and food processing. Mm-hmm. So that's really driving population growth. So if you have a look at the 970 people, predominantly that would have come through various migrant programs. And that 970 is from a net total population growth in Australia last year of 327,000. So the whole country grew by 327,000, regional South Australia by 970.
970 across all of regional South Australia. Oh, wow. It's quite significant, isn't it? Mark Glazbrook is with me. He's the Director of Migration Solutions. So if migrants aren't coming to regional South Australia, where are they going?
If you have a look at population growth in Victoria, New South Wales, West Australia and Queensland last year, collectively it was about 300,000, 310. South Australia, South Australia, Northern Territory, the ACT and Tasmania, population growth was 18,000. So the four gateway cities of Australia predominantly get 90% of Australia's population growth, and predominantly that's through migration.
What sort of changes would you like to see to boost migration to regional SA?
Yeah, the way the migration program is structured at the moment, it's really limiting the flow of people into the big gateway cities. So it's not designed on what the unique and individual needs of our economy and of regional communities. The types of skills that are in demand in agriculture and horticulture, food processing, food manufacturing, for example, doesn't fit into the current structure of the Australian migration program. So slight adjustments to have a semi-skilled element to the migration program would certainly be beneficial. Changes to working holiday visas where people can stay employed for 12 months as one employer rather than 6 months would be something else that we could have a look at. Changes to the structure of the student visa program. There's a whole range of areas that the current structure of the national migration program does not benefit South Australia, especially regional and rural areas.
And this would be changes that would have to be made at the federal level?
Absolutely. Immigration's processed at a federal level, but we really need the state government to support regional areas and go into bat and support changes which would be beneficial for population growth and growing our regional economies. Because that's really what we need. If you look at the retention of essential services in regional areas, at the moment we're seeing a lot of essential services cut back by federal government or state government cuts. We really need to make sure that we can retain population growth in our regional areas to support the retention of those essential services.
I'd like to hear from everyone on this. Mark Glazbrook is with me. He's the Managing Director of Migration Solutions, and we're talking about whether or not, we need to change the visa system in Australia to bring more migrants to regional South Australia and regional areas across Australia. 1300 160 222 is the way that you weigh in on the phone, or you can send me a text on 0467 922 783. Mars in Port Lincoln is saying he's all for refugees and migrants moving to regional areas, but we have few jobs, no facilities for counselling and language assistance, so any migrants would have to travel to Adelaide for major medical problems, as does the rest of regional South Australia. And he says that there are several Indian taxi drivers working in Port Lincoln. They're good people, but they're always accused of taking the locals' jobs. And Donna is saying if we had jobs and housing, that would be great. Mark, is this an argument that you see quite a lot about a lack of jobs for people to work in regional areas?
It is, and the current perception is that migrants take jobs. There's been a lot of economic research done nationally and internationally about the economics of migration, but we've never had any report commissioned in South Australia ever that looks into the net economic benefits that migrants add to our economy. And whether it's a migrant coming internationally or from Victoria, someone migrating internally, there is a net economic benefit. At the moment, I'm doing some research with the South Australian Centre for Economic Studies, and it looks at what are the problems that we're facing with the current immigration structure and what are those economic benefits that can be delivered by a migrant coming and living and working in our regions. And someone who is coming from overseas, they'll land in a regional area, they'll buy a house or rent a house, they'll drive a car, they'll buy a fridge and a microwave and furniture and sheets, and they'll go and spend money in our local economy and communities. They'll go out and eat in restaurants and drink at the local pub. Their kids might go and join the local cricket team. They're going to go to our schools. So there's more of a net economic benefit that can be achieved through increased consumption expenditure than just looking sort of narrowly at, well, we don't want someone coming here because they're going to take that job. We really need to be broadly looking at the net benefit of a migrant living in our regions.
Are these jobs that can't be filled locally? Or
Correct.
haven't been filled locally, in the case of, like you mentioned, Murray Bridge earlier. And I understand the economic argument for it. Do we need regional populations to keep growing? Is bigger better?
I think bigger is better as long as it's targeted. We just don't want more people coming to Australia or South Australia or regional communities if we don't have the support services there, if we don't have the facilities to cater for it, or we don't have the jobs to support that growth. What we need to be looking at is, can the migration program be changed to provide better outcomes? And by better outcomes, we can have a look at what are the job vacancies, where are the genuine vacancies within our communities or within our economy or different sectors of our economy, and how can we better use the migration program to increase productivity or increase growth within our businesses in regional areas, which will then provide more opportunities for training and employment over the coming years.
Mark Glazbrook is with me. He's Managing Director of Migration Solutions. Mark, there's a separate story today about young women aged 20 to 24 making up 95% of South Australia's population loss to interstate. Now we talk about not just getting them in, but people leaving.
Yeah.
Does regional South Australia follow that trend as far as you're aware?
Well, regional areas, it's a bit of a double whammy. People are leaving from regional areas to come into Adelaide, and they're also leaving regional areas to travel interstate. I haven't seen, well, there is ABS data available on net interstate migration. I haven't looked closely at that with regards to net people leaving our regional areas and going to other locations. But it's certainly happening across the board. And last year, there was 5,900 more people that left the state than came here. And that's something in the vicinity of 29,000 people left South Australia, and we had about 22,000 people that came back. The concerning part of the story that was in the paper today is if young people of childbearing age are leaving the state, then it has an added impact on our population growth, because people, the young women or young families that leave the state, if they settle in Melbourne or Sydney or somewhere else and they start a family, then that's also going to have a negative impact.
Okay. Do you think it's likely to change that this young women leaving and a lot of them may be planning to come back? Is that likely to change and will we see more young men, more men leaving with the loss of manufacturing from South Australia?
Well, absolutely.
Mm.
Um, there's very limited opportunities at the moment in South Australia in terms of jobs, and the demise of the automotive industry is a significant concern because historically a lot of people haven't travelled to our regions to take up alternate employment opportunities or be retrained into new areas. So if we want to fill those positions, we really need to look at migrant workers coming in to do that work. The benefit of that will be that if we see one migrant worker creating one new employment position through consumption expenditure and living in a house and driving a car and that type of thing, then it will provide greater opportunities for displaced automotive workers or current unemployed people to be retrained in an area that they may be much more suited to in the service sector, in the retail sector, hospitality, in construction, and a whole range of other areas. But at the moment, those jobs don't exist because we don't have the population growth to stimulate our economy. Melbourne last year grew by 117,000 people. We grew as a state by 9,700. Melbourne grows by 9,700 people every month. So it takes them 1 month to see the same level of economic growth and development and the creation of new jobs that takes us 12 months. When you compare that to regional South Australia, the figures are even more significant. It's a problem that needs to be addressed if we want to protect jobs and future sustainability in our region.
And we need to get some visa changes as a part of the process of making a change. Is that what you're saying, Mark? Yeah.
Absolutely. Migration's not the answer. It is one of a number of strategies that can be implemented which are going to make a difference. Cost of doing business, high electricity costs, access to markets, infrastructure. There's a whole range of issues. It's just that I suppose from my experience of being involved in the migration industry for almost 20 years, I've seen how the current immigration policy disadvantages regional businesses and has an impact on quality of life for business owners. If a business owner can't find someone to work in their restaurant, so they're in the kitchen working long hours, 6 days a week, it limits that business owner's opportunity to think about diversifying or expansion. In one case that I'm aware of in Whyalla, there's one person that's looking to expand his business by bringing in a chef from overseas, but he can't do it because of limitations of the visa program.
And as to how long they can stay. There was an incidence of that in the Riverland as well, where a baker was fully trained, but she couldn't stay because on the visa requirements she was only allowed to spend 6 months. Mark Glazbrook, we do have to leave it there, but thank you.
That's okay. Thanks for the opportunity to be on the show.